An alternative idea that you could use Canva for is for you to analyze an exam question. So whereas the book review might be targeted more at a younger demographic, so thinking about primary school students, you probably teach students who are a lot older. And this is just an example of how you can actually use this platform for something that's a little bit more challenging. So with this, what I've done is I've given my students an exam question, and I've given them the liberty to create something a little bit more innovative in order to answer it. So give your students the opportunity to really think outside of the box. So rather than them writing a traditional essay response to this 20-mark question, my students have given me an example in a visual creative form. So if we just have a look at the final product, you can see here that we have a question that asks students to evaluate what the main aim of educational policies is. So is it to provide all students with equal opportunities? Now, this student has done this by creating a timeline of the main UK educational policies using Canva. So again, tapping into some of those crucial skills like numeracy skills, thinking about the timeline or the order of chronological events. And what they've done is they've used a key, which you can see at the very bottom, to indicate policies that support the question. So educational policies give students equal opportunities, or policies that indicate that actually they reproduce inequality, which is indicated in the red. So it's a really useful tool for students to consolidate their knowledge. So for example, if you've just covered this in a topic and you want to assess what your students have learned, but maybe you don't want them to do it in a traditional essay format, and it's a useful revision activity and tool for them to share amongst themselves at a later date. So if we just have a quick look, thinking from a sociology point of view, I know that my students can have a look at this, and looking at there are more policies indicated or highlighted in red, it clearly shows that the main aim of educational policies is not to provide students with equal opportunities. And that would be reflected in the concluding paragraph of their essay. So that's the way that you can use Canva that creates an infographic, but maybe isn't in a very basic or simplified form. So thinking about another example. So at this point, hopefully you're going through in your mind, how could I use Canva in my subject area? So if you are a science teacher or perhaps a PE teacher, you're starting to generate some ideas. Now, given the current climate that we find ourselves in, we can also use Canva to set activities that don't really sit in the curriculum, but help students deal with this difficult time. So as we know, most of our students are probably at home because they're self-isolating or practicing social distancing, and this kind of disruptive time can make it very difficult for them to understand and process. And as educators or as parents, we're thinking about how we can encourage our students' well-being. How can we take care of them emotionally as well as socially? So you could, for example, set your students this activity where they find solutions to their problems in a very creative way. So the final product, and I will just take you through in a moment how you could go about doing this, is well-being ideas for the month of April, or perhaps you could do it on a fortnightly basis. And it's fun things for students to do when they're feeling anxious, they're bored, or they're low. You could set it as a group activity, which encourages collaboration, or you can set it for students to do as individuals. The idea is that students think about what they could do in order to relieve some of the anxiety or the stress or the challenges that they may face in the given moment. And what you would do as a teacher is you would then share this image with the rest of your class, and they could download it and they could practice some of these ideas when they are feeling a bit out of sort. So if I just go back to the live demonstration, and because I do have this in my folder, I will just show you the final product. So I did take this from a template from the education infographics section, but I've input the images using the elements tool, and I've edited the text using the text function. However, if you are giving this to your students, what you could do is, for example, you could delete some of the ideas, and having just modeled one fun thing that they could do, you could share it with them for them to complete in their own time. And it gets them to think creatively and take ownership of how they're feeling in this given circumstance. So not only are you incorporating design and technology skills, and you're encouraging your students to really develop some of those practices, but you're getting them to also think about how they're engaging or how they're dealing with the crisis that we're facing at the moment. Now, if you do want to share this with your students, for example, as a teacher who's created this model template, you just click share. So using this function here, you would input the names or the emails of your students. If you have signed up with Canva for Education and it's merged with your Google Classroom contacts, you will just type in their names and it will come up. You have an option of how you want to share the link. So if you want to share the link for them to edit and continue by inputting the images and text illustrating their own ideas, you could do it like this, or you could share a link to use as a template, or share a link just for them to view. It's totally up to you. So that's one option of sharing your images. Now, what's really great with Canva is that your students can do this, of course, remotely during this time, or when we do go back to our classroom environments, they can do it within the time that you've allocated. But every student has the opportunity, once they log in and create their own accounts, to download it. And when they download their infographics, they can download it in a range of different file types. So if you want to use PNG or JPEG or PDF, typically the typical standard versions, they can do that. So I'll just show you very quickly. I prefer PNG. So if I click download, in no time, Canva has downloaded that. So I could then, as the teacher, I could print this out once my students have sent it to me and completed it, and I could use it to display around the classroom. The idea here is that our students are being creative, but also it's engaging them with the learning process or with the particular topic or subject that we're teaching. Having these displayed in your classroom environments reinforces those key words or key topics, or some of the key contents of what you've learned, but also gives your students a sense of pride that it's something that they've achieved. These are all high graphic images that look extremely professional, and knowing that your students, whatever age they may be, have been able to design that is something that, of course, you would want to showcase. You could also download these to put on your social media platforms. Given that we are working from a distance at the moment, you might want to engage your students and engage the school community, so other teachers, parents and carers, with some of the work that your students have created remotely. So it's a really nice way, especially thinking about this well-being infographic, of how you could share it with the rest of the school on your Facebook page or your Twitter account, of how students are coping, or ideas of ways that they could cope and really kind of use their time in this very difficult space. So if I just quickly go back. Okay, so looking at this slide here, you will see that on Canva, there are a range of different templates. that students can use to create their own infographics. These are just some examples, not that I've created, but I've taken from the template section just to show you. So there are things that students can do, for example, demonstrating a recipe, step-by-step process for food technology, or perhaps indicating how they would go about carrying out a specific experiment in maybe a science lesson. They could compare fiction and non-fiction books and so forth. So the opportunities really are endless. And, you know, given that I come from a humanities background and I have extremely limited experience in the design field, I feel very confident using Canva because it's highly accessible, and you can set activities for your students and just allow them to really think about what they will produce. Don't be too prescriptive. Let them think outside the box, and even if they have limited to no design skills, it really does empower them to really think about what they could create. Okay, so thank you very much for taking the time to join me this evening. If you have a look, this is a Canva postcard template that I used. So you can see that there are a number of other things that you can do beyond creating infographics if you should choose to do so. But I really do appreciate those of you who have joined. If you have any questions, this will be a great time for us to go through them. So I'm just having a quick look to see who has typed in a question so far. Great. Okay. So first question then is, does Canva allow you to create quizzes? If yes, how can students access them? All right, lovely. So if we just go back to the Canva platform and we go to the homepage. So if you have a look at the homepage, all you would need to do, just very straightforward, is to type in quizzes. And they do have some templates here. Now, if you don't want to use any of these templates, you can create your own. So if you go to your homepage, you could begin to create yours. It might be a bit more of a tedious process starting from scratch, but you have your background. You could type in a heading. So let's say, for example, I wanted to do a quiz on Marxism. And then I could start to put in the questions. Now, what would be really great is, because you are, let's say, for example, using the collaborative approach, you could ask your students to create a number of questions on a particular topic and share it with another student in the classroom and begin to test them on that knowledge. So that's a great way for you to do it. The next question, just having a look, sorry, is, are there any other tools similar to Canva that you have used with your students? How are they different to Canva? So I've attempted to use Photoshop, which I would say is, of course, probably a bit more of a professional design tool, and a lot more complicated than I am comfortable with using. So I haven't actually used anything similar to Canva other than Photoshop with my students. I would say with Canva, its main strength is that it's accessible. So if you are, for example, working with students who are 6 years of age with very minimal guidance or supervision from an adult, they are able to access it because most of the features are literally just drag and drop. And with the templates, they're available, you have an opportunity to just play with what already exists. So you don't always have to start from scratch. It says, first and foremost, in the homepage, I saw a number of designs, and among them a designs for a video. Can I edit videos with Canva? Okay, so I'll just go question by question. Okay, so yes, if we go back to the design page, let's just quickly see, we have a video section. You can edit videos with Canva, so you can input videos. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, Canva isn't just to create posters or infographics. You could create a number of different media platforms, which also includes presentations. So you could do what would be the equivalent of a PowerPoint presentation on Canva, and you would input videos. Now, if you do want to edit the videos, for example, by cutting them down, so reducing the number of seconds or minutes, or you want to input other clips and merge them together, you could also do that if you wanted to. And then number two, thank you again for your question, is what is the big difference between the standard and the pro versions? The main difference really is access to a wider range of images, text, backgrounds, and so forth. So if you have the pro version, you would have access to a greater range of templates, number one, more images, and edit functions. So I can just show you, for example, if I input this picture here, so just going back to the windmill, I go to effects. Sometimes when you download an image from, let's say, Canva or the internet, you might have a background that you do not want. So if I just wanted this particular windmill, but I don't want the sunset background, I wouldn't be able to do that in the standard version, as you can see here. I can only do it with Pro. So the Pro version allows you to do a lot more intricate designing, which might be more useful for some of your students or for yourself personally than the standard version. If you do have the Canva for Education, which is free for all teachers, as long as you teach in a primary or secondary school, then you do have access to the Pro version, which means you have access to a wider range of features. And then when I share my designs with students and they make edits, can I keep track of their edits like in Google Docs? Okay, so you will have your own library. If I just show you here, this is my personal account, so this isn't a teacher account, just for privacy reasons. But just like, for example, in Google Classroom, you have a list of your classes and the students who are all signed up to those classrooms. You'd have something similar here. So instead of, let's say, a TeachPitch folder, I might have Sociology Class A. And within Sociology Class A, I will have a log of all the work that the students have completed and saved in that area. So you can keep track of it. And of course, as they continue to edit or update, you know, save or they delete, it will also reflect in your area as well. So it's a great way where you as a teacher, you set a task, perhaps you give a deadline, and you can see easily those who've completed it, perhaps those who haven't, and you can download it to print and put in their record folder or perhaps in a project booklet. Okay, lovely. And thank you, Fabiana. You are absolutely welcome. And thank you to everyone who has joined, everyone who will join later, and to those of you who've asked the question.